My name is Esben Peistrup. I work for ICLA Europe, and I'm part of the European City Facility team. You probably all know that we launched a call. We opened it last week, and it's running until the 15th of March. And in that call, we're offering money for cities to develop investment concepts on energy and clean energy efficiency. I have three, I would call them experts. I have Anke Müllers from Energy Cities. She will share some background on the call of the European City Facility. I have my Angela Luceri. She will talk about the support offers we're giving to applicants of the European City Facility. And then I have Carolina Borges from Adelphi, and she will explain about the evaluation, the application process, and how we assess the many applications hopefully coming in. Before we do that, just a few house rules. We are recording this session. The presentations will be shared afterwards. You're all muted and you all have your camera turned off, so you will not be on the recording, but you can ask questions through the Q&A function. And that is all from me. Then I move to our first presentation. It's Anke Müllers. It's about the context of the European City Facility.
Yes, thank you, Esben. Welcome to everybody who's in this room, virtual room. No, nice to see you all and nice to see such a big interest. So yeah, I work for Energy Cities and we are coordinating the EUCF project. So I will present to you the overall objectives and context of the EUCF, why we are existing, and give you some key data on the call that is currently open, while Carolina, of course, will dive into more details. On the next slide, Esben, yeah, thank you. So what is the EUCF and why does it actually exist and what do we want to do with it? The EUCF has emerged in 2019, already a while ago, to support cities and local authorities mainly to develop investment concepts for their sustainable energy investments. It is really there to bridge the gap between what you have in your climate and energy action plans as targets, and then to put these into action and basically also find financing for your investments that you are planning. It is this crucial step that you need to investigate, to do some analysis and studies on the feasibility of these investments, to do some economic and financial analysis to get further indicators on is it worth it investing in, what are the revenue streams, and so on. So the EUCF is really there to help you to structure the investments you want to do and do further analysis on and to come out with an investment concept. So it is there to bridge the gap between your energy planning and your targets towards your implementation. On the next slide, I just summarize the objectives as such for the EUCF. We want to build a substantial pipeline of sustainable energy investments in Europe. I think that's the ultimate goal of the EUCF. When I say substantial pipeline, to give you a bit of scale, we have already more than 280 cities or local authorities financed by the EUCF, which is quite a large number, that are working or have worked on their investment concepts. And we are still planning to finance more than about 130 additional beneficiaries. So in the end, we will have more than 420 or 30 beneficiaries financed who can work on an investment concept. So it's quite a big number, and that's what represents then the substantial pipeline of sustainable energy investments. More concretely, how we want to do this as objectives, we really want to financially support. No, go one back, please. Not finished. We want to financially support cities and their groupings, so cities can also apply as groupings in the development of these investment concepts. So financially, you get support, but also we want to offer our support in terms of technical expertise to really help you attract public or private finance at the end of your concept development phase. Next slide, please. What is an investment concept? I think it's important to highlight to get a better understanding of what this is. It's basically a document that we provide to you as a template. It translates your project idea you have into financial language. So you will see several sections. I will not go in detail right now, but you find the template on our website also for your information. Its purpose is really to fill in information about your planned energy investments in regards to financial language. So really assessing if your project is ready and mature for financing, you will have to fill in several financial indicators as well. So that's why I said you need to do some proper financial analysis for this. It is a document that transforms your climate and energy plans into your sound investment projects that I mentioned earlier. And it helps also municipalities to assess feasibility of your planned investment projects and then to facilitate access to funding. So with this concept, once you have written it for your sustainable energy investments, it will help you to structure and to really see the feasibility of your investment and hopefully to find financing afterwards. Next slide, please. So how do we work? Once you are selected as a beneficiary, you will get 60,000 euros from us to do these analyses, to do the studies you need to do. This is a lump sum, so no complicated reporting requirements. It's really quite simplified. You can use the financial support for whatever you need to develop this investment concept. So either in-house staff, you can hire some consultants. It really depends on your needs on your local level. In addition to the financial support, we also offer some other services. We call them capacity building services. So for all our beneficiaries selected, we offer a learning program, let's call it like this. So we want to enable you as beneficiaries to finance and implement the investment concepts afterwards, so that you don't just finish with the concept as such, but that you have follow-up measures and steps to take where you can seek financing or further support. So in our capacity building services, I'm giving a few examples here. We really talk in depth about the investment concept and give you good tips on how to fill it in. We talk about the stakeholder involvement and mapping of stakeholders that are important to develop and later on implement your investment concepts. We have also some lessons and modules about the financial tools and language that you need to use to implement and develop your investment concept. So there are some tools like the financial model. We'll explain in more detail some indicators to get so that you get a better understanding of this financial language as well, which we realized is quite an issue for some municipalities who do not have this mindset of this mindset on financial indicators, for instance. We'll also present in these capacity building services some relevant investment schemes that could be relevant for you to apply and be it public or private. And also, of course, we give further tips for successful implementation of the IC. So all of these are additional support services that we offer for beneficiaries once they receive the 60,000 euros support. Next slide, please. So if you want to participate to the EUCF, we have a call open. As Espen was saying, it opened last week. Can you go to the next slide, please? And it will close on the 15th of March, 2024 at 5 o'clock Brussels time. So keep this in mind. You can go online on our website. You have the link down there and you can apply. Everything is online. One thing to highlight is that we have this call open only for new beneficiaries. So if you have received previous funding from the EUCF, even if it was another project, but if your local authority has received funding before, you cannot reapply or you cannot receive funding again. So in this call, this is completely open for new beneficiaries. We do this so that we reach out to really a big number of cities throughout Europe and we don't finance always the same cities. Next slide, please. An overview on who is eligible in terms of countries. You have, well, you see a map here, so all the blue highlighted countries are eligible. We divide them in regions. We do this because when we get the applications, we compare applications in that region, but we don't compare them European-wide, but we group them in the region, so it makes more sense in terms of comparison regions. On the next slide, you see the detailed list of countries that are eligible per region. You see also the budget that is available for the 6th call. So we have 4.5 million euros available for the entire call. It's divided by region, as you can see, and in total it allows us to finance 75 new investment concepts in this call. So 75 local authorities will be selected at the end of this call. I mean, once we have selected, evaluated the applications, and you can see the division by region as well. It means that we will select 30 investment concepts in Central and Eastern Europe, 19 in the Nordic countries in Western Europe, and 26 in Southern Europe. I think these are the main details on the call. As I want to present right now, I'll hand over to Mariangela, who will talk about the support you can get from us when you have questions on the call. And then Carolina will, of course, go in much more detail on the eligibility and selection criteria. Thank you.
Thank you. Hello, good afternoon, everyone. Hesbeth, perhaps if you can just move to the next slide, please. So in addition to what Anke mentioned, the capacity building program, we also provide technical support at both European and national level. At European level, you can, of course, contact us through the central help desk that is available on the website and ask us all the questions you may want. We also develop plenty of material that I invite you to check before applying, in particular guidelines for applicants, FAQs, and video tutorial on how to start a new application and fill it in the form. Instead of national level, you have two figures. One is called national hubs and the other one is called country expert. The national hubs are these persons or organizations that mainly promote the facility. In this period, they are organizing the info sessions, and they will also provide some support to the beneficiaries in accessing national funds. Country expert instead are, again, person organization with experience in sustainable energy and financing. And they will guide you throughout the process. They will help you in the application and also in the development of investment concept. One thing, national hubs and country experts are part of the ECF family or team. So they cannot work on the application or the investment concept, meaning you cannot hire them to draft the application. A country expert have an ECF email that you can reach. It's ce.country@uctfacility.eu. So for example, if you want to contact the country expert for Austria, it's ce.austria@uctfacility.eu. And on the website, under the page National Support, you find all the list of country experts and national hubs, so you can also associate a face to the person. Next slide, please. So the activity that we carry out at the national level are, as I mentioned, info sessions. I will come back on this in the next slide. In some countries where we notice that there are some difficulties in applying to the UCF or in being successful, country expert will also organize what we call tailored training. So they will group the interested applicants in small webinars, small workshops, and they will dive into the application form, treating the most complicated parts in that country. So for example, they will work with them on the calculation of the estimated impacts and so on. As I mentioned, the country experts are here to guide you. They work as national help desk, so they can answer all your questions in national language. And they can also check the applications with you. First of all, they can give a quick check of the applications to see that everything is there, so that your application is not rejected for missing information. And they can also provide you some information, for example, on the several parts of the application form that Carolina will explain later. Again, what they cannot do is to draft the applications for you, and they cannot choose which project you will submit to DS. That's up to you to decide which project. They can only advise you on how to improve your application. Then Carolina will also explain who's eligible for UCF, but in case you're not sure whether you are eligible or not, you can also contact either us or the country expert to find it out. And then if you are selected, so if you've become an UCF beneficiary, they will also support you in the development of investment concept by, first of all, facilitating the conversation with us, supporting you in the negotiation of the grant agreement, for example, and also identifying which barriers or challenges you may face during the development of investment concept, so that we can then tailor our support towards you. Next slide, please. So finally, as I mentioned, country experts and national hubs are organizing national info sessions in all the eligible countries of the UCF. You see here the dates. Some have already had place, some will have place in the coming days and weeks. Each info sessions will be recorded, so if you missed the one that already took place, you can already go on the website and look for the recordings. And that's it from my side. Thank you.
Okay, so good afternoon from my side also. I'm Carolina Borges. I'm a manager at Adelphi and also part of the UCF team. And we work mainly in the planning of all the processes of application, evaluation, also investment concept development. So today I will present you the application and the evaluation processes for the 6th call of the UCF. And we start with the first step of the process, which is the eligibility criteria. So we start the application process for the UCF with an eligibility check. This is a very simple automated questionnaire to be answered with a yes or no. And to pass the eligibility check, you must be able to answer with yes to all the 5 questions. So similarly to the previous calls, we have 5 eligibility criteria. First, the applicant must be a municipality or local authority, a grouping of municipalities or local authorities, or a local public entity aggregating municipalities and local authorities. And I will get back to this different types of applicants soon. Second, the applicant must be located in one of the EU 27 member states, in Iceland or in Ukraine. Third, the applicant must have a sustainable energy action plan, so a SECAP developed under the Covenant of Mayors framework, or another local or climate energy plan, including at least 1 mitigation target. Then fourth, applicants to the UCF must provide a proof of political commitment. This is required already in the step of the application, so after the eligibility check. And the last eligibility criterion is the commitment to the monitoring periods of 2 years. This starts in the submission of the investment concept and lasts, for a period of 2 years, where our beneficiaries have to submit monitoring reports. By passing this eligibility check, the applicant can then proceed with the registration in the UCF website with User Zone, which is our platform where everything happens, and can start working in the application. In the next slide, before we dive into the application form and the required documents, we'll look shortly into this 2 different types of applicants. So municipalities and local authorities can apply single, or they can apply as a grouping. This can be a formal or informal grouping, and it has the advantage that it gives you the possibility to increase the ambition of your proposed investment concept. So more investments and more impacts. For grouping applications, all the municipalities in the grouping must be listed in the application form, and a lead applicant must be identified. The plan, so the SECAP or other local climate energy plan, can be submitted by the grouping as a whole, so can refer to the whole grouping of cities, or only to the lead applicant. Additionally, for grouping applications, it's important that the relationships among the members of the grouping are very well described in the governance structure, so that we understand how the cities will work together in the grouping. And it's important to remember that the grant amount is paid only once for the whole grouping, and the lead applicant indicated in the application form will sign the grant agreement and receive the grant. Then on the next slide, we have the third type of applicant that is eligible for the UCF, which are local public entities aggregating municipalities or local authorities. These entities may vary according to the national context, so from country to country they are different. In our guidelines for applicants, we have an unexhaustive list of examples per country, but you can always contact us through the UCF help desk to verify your eligibility if you're not included in this list. So this includes, for example, in Germany, the Landkreise, the metropoles in France, or áreas metropolitanas in Portugal. So there are different examples in the different countries. To be eligible, these entities have 3 specific eligibility criteria that you can see in this blue box. So they must be recognized as a tier of the local government, with the obligation for municipalities and local authorities to join the organization. They must be composed only by municipalities and local authorities, and they must have a specific political and administrative structure. In the application form for these entities, there's specific checkboxes for this criterion that they must check to be able to submit the application form. These entities cannot apply as groupings, they can only apply single to the UCF. And now we can move forward and look a bit more in detail into the application process as a whole. So as I mentioned, the first step of the process is the eligibility check, where you will answer to these 5 questions. Once you pass the eligibility check, you will receive the login details for the UCF website user zone, and you can start working in your application. The application includes an application form, which is filled online, and 2 mandatory annexes. And after the call closes, we will evaluate these applications based on our 4 evaluation criteria. And the best applications are selected to sign the grant agreement and to work with us in the development of the investment concept. So now let's look a bit more in detail, even more into the requirements of the application. So our application, as I mentioned, consists of 2 parts, the application form and the supporting documents. I will present you the sections of the application form in a minute, and the 2 supporting documents that we have that are mandatory for the submission are the plan, as I mentioned, and a letter of support to the investment of the to the development of the investment concept. In the next slide, we have then in detail all the sections of the application form. The first section will include, you can pass, Esben. The first section, yes, will include then this identification of the applicant. So here it's you will have to provide your basic contact information. In the registration form to the platform, you will already be required to indicate the type of applicant, and the application form is slightly different depending on the type of applicant. Municipalities and groupings, so single applicants and groupings, must provide their NUTS-3 and LAU code according to the Eurostat territorial classification. Local public entities do not have an LAU code, so they must provide only the NUTS-3 of the region where they are located, and they must include also a VAT number, so a tax identification number. And the rest is very basic information. Pay attention on the contact you provide, because this is the email that will be used to contact you about the results of the call. Then in the second section, we have the political commitments of the applicant. First, we have the commitment to the mitigation targets, and here we refer to the SECAP or other climate and energy plan. Here you have to upload the document and also to provide some general information about the plan that I will also present in a minute. And then second, you have the political commitment, and it's where you have to upload the letter of political support, for which we have a template on the website that I will also mention again in a minute. Within this item, also the local public entities must check the 3 boxes confirming their eligibility that I mentioned before. Then finally, on the third section, we ask you for information about your proposed investment concept. So here you are required to describe the project, what are the objectives, what is the main targeted sector, the implementation period. We ask you to describe the governance structure and the strategy for engaging stakeholders, and also to describe all the measures that are intended for the project, their impacts and investment costs, and the potential for replication and upscaling of the project. Then finally, the last section of the application form concerns the use of the UCF grant of €60,000. It's important to note that this is the only section that will ask you to tell us what you're going to do with the grant. This is for monitoring purposes only. It's not evaluated in any way, but it's important to keep in mind that in section 3, you will talk about your investment concept and not about what you're doing with the €60,000. Then on the next slide, we look briefly into the 2 mandatory documents and what are the requirements. So first we have the SECAP or other local climate energy plan. The action plan can be submitted either in English or in local language as you prefer or as you have it available. Since it can be submitted in national language, we ask you to provide some general information in the application form so that we can verify your plan. So you must indicate the title, what type of plan it is, what time period it covers, and provide us with a brief description. And we ask you to show us what is the mitigation target that is included in the plan, or if there are more mitigation targets, you can also list them. Please do not forget to provide here the page where we can find this mitigation target. Otherwise, we cannot verify if the plan is filling the requirements. For the letter of support, this must be submitted in English. As I mentioned, we have a template. It's available for download on the website in Word format. And this letter must be signed by a mayor or by another relevant political administrative of the applicant grouping local public entity. Yes, and this question comes often also. The signature can be digital. It's also accepted. Then on the next slide, to conclude my presentation on the application process, I would like to mention some points to pay attention that we note during the evaluation. There are some more critical points. So first, as I mentioned, please fill in correctly the information about your plan, especially the page where we can find the mitigation target. This is important for us to verify if we can accept the plan, if it does really include the mitigation target. Then second, the expected impacts and the investments from the project, they are summarized per sector and per measure in a table. And in the end, the total investment sizes and the total impacts in energy savings and renewable energy will be calculated as the sum of these components listed in the table. This was in the fifth call, maybe one of the most problematic parts of the application form. So we introduced now in the guidelines for applicants examples. And I would really recommend you to have a look at the examples and how to fill this table and to present correctly the measures that you plan and get to your final impacts afterwards. Then third, the UCF has a clear focus on energy efficiency projects. This is a political focus also. So the projects that are focused on energy efficiency, and that means that have most impacts in energy savings and not on renewable energy generation, they will be appreciated in the evaluation of the ambition. So that doesn't mean that projects focused on renewable energy cannot apply. It just means that they, in the competition, they lose a bit of points in comparison to energy savings projects. Then the evaluation of the governance structure and stakeholder engagement strategy is key. They are very important elements of the evaluation. And what we recommend you to do here is to read the question very carefully and to address in your description all the elements that are required in the question. We listed them in bullet points, so that is very visible for you, everything you have to address. Then after you write your description, read again and ask yourself, did I include everything that they are asking? Because this is how these criteria are evaluated. We are really checking if you included everything that we're asking. Then the next point regards the figures for impacts and investments. It's important for us that these figures are coherent, that they are realistic, and that they make sense in relation to your project, to the measures you want to implement, to the time you're considering to implement this measure. So we will verify the coherence and plausibility of these figures in criterion 4. And applications who have unrealistic or problematic figures will lose points in this criterion. It's very important mainly that you pay attention to the unit you use to indicate energy savings and renewable energy production. We ask for these figures in gigawatt hour per year. So if you use another unit, the numbers will be very out of range and you will lose points in criterion 4. Then the next point regards the uniqueness of the applications. The applications for the UCF must be unique and must be tailor-made to the local context. So we understand that it's incoherent that different municipalities will implement the same project with the same objectives, the same stakeholders, the same governance structure. We don't believe this is possible. So applications that have a duplicate or a similar content in the descriptions that we see that is just copy pasted from another application, they will be rejected. They are not considered for support. They will not move forward. And the last point, beneficiaries that we mentioned already, beneficiaries from previous calls cannot apply again to the UCF. So if you have benefited from the UCF again, you cannot submit an application again. With this, we conclude the application process, and I will now shortly go through the evaluation process and the criteria. So the evaluation of the application submitted to the UCF is conducted by a dedicated team. So the members of the UCF team are not involved in the evaluation. And each application is evaluated by 2 different evaluations. If there's a discrepancy in the scores given by these 2, a 3rd evaluation is also assigned to perform the evaluation. The final score of the application will be calculated as the average of the scores of the evaluators involved. And this process takes about 2 months. You will be informed per email once the evaluation closes, and receive also feedback on the performance of your application. You can access it in the UCF website user zone. So in the next slide, we have our 4 evaluation criterion. The first criterion concerns the ambition of the proposed investment concept. So here we will look into the different indicators and their ambition level in relation to the other applications submitted in the region. So here we consider both the absolute figures for investment size, energy savings, and renewable energy production, and the figures per capita. Therefore, it's very important that you indicate correctly your population size, not in thousands, not in millions, just indicate the whole number, because all the indicators for your evaluation are calculated also based on that. Here we will also look at the cost effectiveness of the project, so the euro per impact range, and the focus on energy efficiency, as I mentioned, and the potential for the project to be replicated or upscaled. Then the second and the third criteria concern respectively the governance structure and the stakeholder engagement strategy. These 2 criteria are evaluated basically on the same manner. We will first look if your description includes all the elements that we asked. We will look whether the description is clear and understandable. So if we can really understand what you're proposing. And finally, whether the proposed structure or the proposed strategy seems robust and appropriate for the development of the investment concept. Then last, we have the criterion coherence and plausibility. Here we will verify whether the whole concept makes sense and it's clearly described, it's well addressed by the applicant. And we will look, as I mentioned, into the coherence and plausibility of the figures, if they are realistic, if they make sense with the project. And finally, here is also where we will check the uniqueness of the application's content. And in criterion 4.3, applications that have duplicate content, identical descriptions will be rejected. So finally, my last slide, here we look at how the final score is calculated. So for each application criterion, we will have evaluation questions with specific defined scores. The maximum score achieved by each application is 20 points. And the criteria compose these 20 points with different ways, as you can see on the slide. So criterion 1 has 7 points, while criterion 4 has only 3 points. For criteria 2 to 4, we have a quality threshold of 50%. So for criterion 2 and 3, at least 2.5 points must be achieved. And for criterion 4, at least 1.5 points. This quality threshold does not apply to criterion 1 on the ambition of the project. So this should allow smaller projects with lower ambition to have good chances to be selected and to compete with the others in case the other criteria in the application are well addressed. So that's it from my side. If you have any questions, I'll be here also. And thank you.
I'm trying again with the mic on. Thank you so much to all of you. Really a pleasure. For now, for the Q&A, we're going to go in the Q&A section. There's a few questions coming in already, and then I will ask the appropriate person to answer that specific question. I think perhaps I'm going to say easy. First one would be whether a 7th call is foreseen, Anke.
Yes, there is a 7th call foreseen. So after the 6th call, we have one more opportunity for another call, the last one. That should open by the end of this year. So December opening, not closing. I have no exact time, call dates, so to be confirmed, but rest assured there will be one more call coming after the 6th call. So if you are rejected, I hope not, but if you are rejected in the 6th call, you can reapply.
Thank you. Then before going to the next question, I'm just gonna give the right to speak to an Emil Peric just to check that everyone, also meeting guests, can write in the Q&A. They should be able to, but I am just making sure that's not the problem. Hello, Emil, can you speak now? Hello, Emil. Alrighty. I'm going back to the Q&A then. Oh, questions are coming in. A question, I think this is going to be for you, Carolina. The 60,000 should go to the implementation of the measures, question mark?
No, this is actually a very good question because it's a very common mistake. The 60,000 euros should support you in developing the investment concept. So if you need to do a feasibility study, a technical analysis, any or hire external experts for your investment concept, any work that is on the background of your investment concept should be developed with the 60,000 euros. It's little for the implementation of measures, but for the development of this technical analysis and background studies, this should help you. But the project that you should describe in the application is not what you're going to do with the 60,000 euro, is the project that you want to implement with your investment concept. I hope it's clear.
It was clear to me, but I also I think it was clear. It's really, I mean, it's money that can be used as the municipality or the beneficiary deems most useful.
Yeah, the goal is that the investment concept will mobilize the financing for the implementation of the measures, not that you will implement the measures with the 60,000.
Exactly. Good. Then I have a question, a comment, but I read it as a question. It's from the city of Venice. They're planning to apply for the call. That's great to hear. But the CCAP will probably be adopted end February, beginning of March. They right? And then I'm going to add. So that's the question. What does that mean? And then I'm going to add, what would it mean if it's only being adopted right after the deadline?
If you have the plan and you can submit and provide the information we request from it, it's accepted, although it's not yet adopted or approved. However, if the final plan is not ready yet, then it wouldn't be possible. But I mean, if you have a document that is just going through administrative process for being adopted, this is okay. But if you cannot submit the document yet, then it's not really possible to apply.
Thank you. Then I'm gonna ask you, Mariangela, if it's okay. I think this is within what you would also know about. It's regarding the uniqueness of the application. So they were rejected in a previous call, but would like to apply again with the same project. This will mean a repetition of our application with adjustments, which is not unique to the last application we submitted. Which is, I guess, more or less unique to the last application they submitted, this specific municipality or grouping. Would that be okay?
Yes, so the uniqueness that Carolina mentioned, it's for applications within the same call, but if your applications was rejected, of course you can resubmit it, although a kind reminder that together with the rejection letter, you also received a feedback report, so please do address the comments in the feedback report before resubmitting it. So go and adjust the parts that received a low score.
Perfect.
But if we receive other applications that again look the same, then it will not be accepted. Like we understand that these applications are prepared by the same organization or the same person, because the content is more or less the same. The descriptions are, the text is very similar. So in a sense, you also have to make sure that there will be no other applications resubmitted with the same text, or that you make enough adjustments that it doesn't look the same as the others from the last call.
Thank you. This is probably for you again, Carolina. How do you evaluate the investment size? Is it relative to the investment capacity of the municipality or in relation to the other, I'm guessing, applications, to the other applications?
It's evaluated in relation to the others. So we will, the evaluators are provided with where the ambition of your investment size is allocated in relation to the other applications submitted in the same region. And this is done for all the figures, per capita and absolute. So in the if you're a smaller municipality who will have a smaller absolute ambition, you will probably have a bigger per capita, a big relative ambition in the figures per capita. So you're also not prejudiced in any way in the evaluation.
Thank you very much. Then I have a question for you, Anke, and I guess this also speaks into the general private financing perspective. It's a question of, do we need a bank as a partner to develop the investment concept?
When you submit the application form, no, you don't need a bank yet as a partner. Of course, also when you develop the investment concepts and you do your analyses, you do not need a bank as a partner as such. But of course, it's always good to reach out if you have already contacts to see what they are expecting from such investment concepts, what kind of risks they are willing to take and so on. So I think that is also good to get these contacts, but you don't need a partner. I mean, you do need them as a partner.
Good. Then I have it's a somewhat difficult question. I think it's about a probability calculation of success from call 1 to 5. I guess we can do the last call to kind of narrow it down a little bit. Do you have any idea? I guess this is also Anke or Carolina. I guess this is one of you. Do you have any idea of probability of success across the different regions?
It's it's hard to say because it's very specific from call to call, depending on how many the last call, like we had much more applications in Central Eastern Europe, for example. So the probability there was different than the probability in Southern Europe. It's very hard to say and very specific from call to call. We have not much control on these numbers.
No, that's true. What I can maybe give as a reference for the overall call of last time, not per region, but overall we received about 170 applications last time and we accepted 65 in the end. So you have a success rate of a bit more than 30%, even higher. Yeah, but that was for the last call. And as Carolina said, this differs from call to call and depends really on how many of you will apply.
Yeah. And we just had the additional information that it was the Netherlands, and I think I can add that the last call for the Nordics had a significantly higher rate of success. So fewer applicants for the amount of beneficiaries.
Yes, indeed.
Good. Then I have a question: is there a minimum amount of the investment that is targeted in the investment plan?
No, since the evaluation always considers a comparison. So it's always, even from call to call, this is different because it depends on the applications that are submitted in this region in this call. There's no minimum and there's no maximum, no indication figures. It's always compared within the call.
Thank you. And then I guess you mentioned this thing about ambition no longer being having a threshold. I guess that also
exactly.
makes it more likely to be selected, despite perhaps not having the highest number. On that.
Even if your investment is not that high, but then you should really put effort in making a good description for governance structure, for stakeholder engagement, that you can ensure you're still in the competition.
Yes, thank you. Then I have a question of whether it's possible to submit 2 different projects / investment concepts within one application.
It's a complex one. Yes, we recommend that you bundle as much as possible, so that you try to develop an investment concept, bundling different measures in different sectors, different projects that the municipality wants to implement. Of course, it has to be realistic. You cannot say you want to develop an investment concept for your whole SECAP. So it has to make sense together, but also in the investment concept development, you can work on different projects and different streams of financing and implementation. So this is not a problem.
Thank you. Then I have a question. I don't know, Mariangela, if this might be for you. At least I'm thinking country experts. Maybe I'm wrong, but it's a question of how applicants can check that their plan is tailor-made and unique and not used before or used by others.
So if by plan they meant action plan?
No, they
Well,
mean the application as
the
such. Because
application.
this, yeah.
The application, indeed, you cannot check it, but as Ben mentioned, the country expert can. So you can just check to the country expert, ask the country expert to quickly check all applications in that country and see if the description is similar in all applications or in more than one application.
Yeah, and I guess it's also a question of, I mean, you can choose to create the application in-house. It's also possible to get support from a consultant, and of course, if you create it in-house, it's going to be tailor-made. And if you do it with a consultant, you need to discuss that it should be tailor-made. But exactly, you can reach out to your country experts as well to have them take a look. Good.
There was a question before whether municipalities could apply alone. So
yes, sorry, that
yes.
was one of the very first questions. That was also from Venice. Exactly, you're right. Who wants to answer that?
Yes, they can apply alone.
Yes.
Yes. It's an easy one. I'm sorry. I gave some focus now on the presentation to groupings and local public entities, because these are like the different types of applications. The most basic type of application is a single municipality, and you can, of course, do it.
Yes, then there's a question. In the beginning of the presentation, it was mentioned that an organization, municipality, that has already been granted EUCF funding cannot apply again. And then the question continues, is that for the whole municipality? I guess it might be if a public entity in the municipality is applying, then if another public entity in it, I'm not quite.
Yeah. Yeah, it applies in general to the whole municipality. What I want to point out, and I didn't mention, is when you apply, when you received EUCF funding before already in a grouping. For example, you are part of a grouping in call 1 or 2, very early in the beginning of the EUCF, you were not the lead applicant. You were just part of the grouping, but you received EUCF funding. Even in this case, you cannot reapply. So really check that you have not received EUCF funding before, even as part of the grouping.
But in the case of that question, if, for example, it's the case of, I don't know, metropolitan areas that applied and got funds, and now it's the city or one of the municipality in the metropolitan area, they are eligible, because we do not consider local public entity and the municipalities in it as the same as the beneficiary.
Yeah.
Yes. Then there's a question. For this, I may need a little bit of help. Can we use this investment concept to support the EE investments for different small flats here and there, mostly social housing, or better to apply for one or more large multi-apartment buildings? I guess it's essentially whether it's better to have a very concrete, demonstration site, or whether it can be spread out over a large territory and many different planned actions on different buildings and such.
We have both cases. We have, for example, investment concepts that focus on implementation by homeowners. So in creating, I don't know, a one-stop shop or a structure through which homeowners can do a flat renovation themselves. And they will make then an investment in energy efficiency, or we have like public buildings projects where the municipality will also do the investments or will gather the investments. So both options are possible.
Perfect, thank you. Then there's a question. It starts with mentioning that part of the payment is paid when the investment concept is delivered or is implemented. Delivered. That's an important difference. We're paying you when you deliver the investment concept, not when it's implemented. That's going to be in the future often. And then what happens if the IC is not implemented? So I guess maybe answer two questions. What happens if they don't deliver an investment concept? And what happens if in the future it's not implemented?
I can take it. I mean, first of all, to clarify that, because I didn't specify it in my presentation, the 60,000 we pay in 2 steps. So upfront, once you're approved, you get 65% of it, and the remaining 35% you get once you submit the investment concept and it was positively validated by us. We do have a few cases, not many, but a few cases where they do not finish the investment concept because halfway through they realize the investment is not feasible at all, it doesn't make sense, things have changed. In this case, it is also possible to just stop the process. You will have to inform us, start with contacting your country expert first, but just inform us and justify why this is not the case. If there's a good justification behind it, and so far it's been in all cases, you can keep the first 65% of the 60,000. There's no need to pay it back to us, but you will not receive the final amount. This will be explained once you're approved in more detail, and so you're clear about the processes.
Perfect, thank you. If there's any questions left, this will be the last chance of noting them down and receive an answer. But if not, then I'm very slowly I'm going to share just a couple of links in the chat. One is taking you to all the national webinars, so from the national support system, and the other is just the general call 6 page. I assume, since you're here, most of you have probably seen it, but now you have the links available in case you need them. Let me check if there are any final questions. Oh, that's true. If the IC is not implemented, we never got the answer to that, I think. We only had on the submission. What happens if in the monitoring period it turns out the IC is not going to be implemented?
We also have this case that in the end you got the 60,000 euro, you developed a whole financial analysis and you saw that it's not feasible, it's not economically doable. So we have beneficiaries that come to the result that they don't want to do it. And this is okay. You are still committed to the monitoring, so you will still have to submit the monitoring forms and tell us we're not doing it. But there's no form of penalization. By that time, you already have received the whole grant, and we understand that this will be the case of some beneficiaries.
Thank you very much. I don't see any final questions, so I'm going to ask it, and I'm going to ask it to you, Carolina. I know you've been speaking quite a lot, but the question is a tricky one, I think. How long would you say it takes to submit an application to the European City Facility?
It depends a bit on how much from your project you have prepared. If you have the background information, it's really a very simple application form. It shouldn't take a long time. If you have the information, you should base also on your SECAP and how these actions are defined. So our goal is really that you do not take very long to fill the application form. It will vary, of course, from case by case, depending on the applicant, but it's really not supposed to be a very demanding process.
That's good. Thank you. That is everything from us. Thank you very much to the three of you, and thank you to everyone that joined this call. Should we do the final? There's a final exclamation mark in the chat. Let's take it. They have to do a stakeholder strategy. That takes time. This is true. It depends how you have to. Carolina, do you want to speak on it? Sorry. There's a question pointing out that they have to do write a stakeholder engagement strategy.
Even the number of characters is very limited here. And if you look at the requirements, we're not asking you to perform a whole stakeholder analysis and develop a whole strategy. We're asking you who are your stakeholders and what do you plan? How do you plan to engage them? It's kind of a overview of something that you should already have in mind for implementing the project. So you will see that you're not even able to write that much. The descriptions are limited, and you really have to summarize and not take that long into preparing it.
The person, Maria said, thank you, good news. So that's good. On those good news, we will end this call. Thank you, everyone. We hope to have many of you applying, and we hope to have as many of you as beneficiaries as well.
Thank you. Good luck to everyone.
Thank you. Bye. Good luck.
Bye-bye.